Hips are affected by the whole body and affect the whole body. So if you ignore them, you'll never get the results you're looking for in your mobility or how you feel physically. For me, I came to fitness because I had pain in my ankles, my shins. I never really had knee issues. My shoulders were all messed up. My elbows hurt for a little bit. My wrists hurt and my spine didn't move very well. But I never correlated that with the hips. And so I fixed all these other areas. And then I found that my hips were actually the thing that was stemming the problem to the rest of my body. So I had to go in deep and fix that. I've seen this repetitively with other clients as well. Their hips are actually the thing causing the chronic pain, but they come in with an acute pain in their knee or somewhere else that they need to get fixed. So we address that. But addressing the hips is where we actually address the root problem of the chronic pain that they're experiencing continuously. It's just expressed in different ways. So every person needs a different program to build this up. But here are the 4 different ways you can train your hips to get the results that you're looking for. So for the hips, you need to train the front, back, outside, and inside. This is how to fix the root of the pain. And all these exercises will be given from easier to more difficult as we move forward. That could be more stretch, and that could also just be more difficult to learn because there's more things to think about. We'll start with the front of the hip. So initially, very easy, just getting the hip flexors to activate, doing a standing hip flexor raise. Typically, I'll have people do this holding on to something so they're not worried about their balance or anything else. What I also want them to focus on is flexing this back glute of the opposite leg that you're lifting. What typically will happen is we kind of go like this and get it through. It activates more of the core, which can be good, but right now we're trying to get the hip flexors, so keep that glute nice and flexed, pulling up and through. The second movement is the L-sit variation, and my clavicle is recovering 3 weeks post-break, so I'm not gonna put any pressure into the ground. In some of these movements, I'll adjust or I'll have B-roll pop up so you can see the movement, but I can't demonstrate all of them because of that, but I can walk you through them and explain it. So the L-sit variation, you can start here, and if someone like me, you can't push down right now, maybe your shoulders were messed up or something like that, you're sitting here, you're just lifting up, going through. And then what you can do is push through the ground here and get both of them going up. You can hold that. Very simple to start with, walking and then walking with a hold. And then you can even move in and out. This is a good exercise. You can have something under your foot, but you want to eventually get to where you can do both and feel the core squeeze and the hip flexor squeeze. Very good exercise to build up hip flexion. The ATG split squat is also a wonderful exercise to train the hip flexors through some range. So you're moving through, feeling this stretch, the back hip flexor. The thing that you want to think about for training the hip flexors in this exercise, because it does train a lot of other things, is actually pushing the back foot into the ground, but keeping the legs straight. So as I said, it gets harder. That means there's more things to think about, but also there might be a little bit more range. So there's more things that you might have to deal with. If your knee's not good in the front, it's going to be hard to do this exercise. The other ones might be a little bit easier to start with. And then finally, the last one for the front of the hip is the couch stretch, which is extremely important. And I only put this as the last one that is the most difficult because there's the most stretch, but it's probably the most important. It's going to feel difficult as you go through it. You're just holding it here, trying to keep this part of your body straight. Oftentimes I'll have people start like this, and then we use a bench, push our body weight up. You can have your hand on your knee. You're just getting comfortable here, but then we start working the foot up and getting the knee back, holding this position, feeling the stretch. And even more advanced than that is the couch lunge, where you're then pushing forward and then driving this knee into the pad to get this hip flexor activated to push yourself from down here back up. Now the next part, we're going to the back of the hip, which is primarily going to focus on the hamstring for these movements. The hamstring curl is first, working that short range, pulling through the hammy and getting movement. You're trying to also use your glutes with all of these movements. They tie together. So it's not specifically that we're only using one or the other. It's just what we're targeting. And then it's all going to help itself out. That's why you go to the back extension after. So how you're doing the back extension is legs are straight, locking the legs straight behind you. The pad is just below your hips. It can also be at your hips. Moving through the movement and then flexing the glutes and pulling by flexing the heels into the pad on the back extension to get the hamstrings active, going up to a straight body and then going back through. If I want more of the lower back active, I'll curl the lower back at the bottom and then come up and straighten at the top, flexing the lower back. If I want it to be more hamstrings and glutes, I'm going to keep the back straight and then flex through. Very simple exercise, and actually a very good exercise to fail on because it's about mid-range, so you're not failing with too much. You can always put your hands on the handles and help press yourself up. The next one is the elephant walks. A little more stretch here, so it can be a little bit challenging. How this works is the knees are bent first, reaching down, and then you're opening one leg at a time. Oftentimes I'll have people start by almost grabbing their knees and then just doing this, trying to get used to flexing open the back, the posterior chain, through the hamstring and the glute, moving back through. What I think a lot of people miss on this exercise is actually pushing into the glute on that straightened leg. You want to feel it come wrap around the whole backside of the hip as you rotate. So push the glute back behind you, push the butt back behind you, and it will get a deeper stretch. But also you can do this lifting up your toes. You'll get a stretch in the calf because, as I said in the beginning, it's all connected. The last one is the stiff leg RDL, which I can't demonstrate right now because I can't hold more than like 10 pounds. Realistically, I shouldn't hold 10 pounds, but I can. Holding it here and going through the movement. For the RDLs, you're pushing the hips back, the knees stay in line with the ankles, and the knuckles stay touching the legs the whole time. Those are important form cues to allow the hamstrings to get the stretch at the bottom. Back is completely straight, unlike the back extensions where I'd have people fold the back a little bit. For the stiff leg RDLs, I want it to keep straight because I want to focus on those hamstrings. Jefferson curls are also important, but not a part of this video because I feel they have more application to the spine than they do the hips, though they are a good exercise like any posterior chain exercise. You should do it and you should pattern it through your exercise routine. So one, you don't get bored, but also there's a lot of variety. So now onto the outside, which is primarily a glute focus. So the first movement is actually a stretch because most people have really tight glutes. How this works, very comfy, easy stretch. You're gonna get next to the wall and then lean back on a pad or on carpet is the best. And then open up the hips by moving one ankle to the knee. You're gonna pull down on that. And what you're gonna do is actually flex the glute out and then flex the groin in. So this is an activation drill to start moving the glute through a stretch. Just doing reps like that. And then to actually get a stretch, you can just push the knee and drop the hips. So if I'm pulling with the core down that way and then pushing the knee out, I feel a pretty good stretch on the glutes. And as I sit here longer, I can just keep sinking into it. Great glute exercise with the movement, but also stretch as it can be relaxing and you can go on your phone while you do it, which I don't always suggest, but it can be good. The incline pigeon pulse, another stretch that you can start moving through, is on an incline bench. A big mistake I see for most people is they try to shift in this way. This is actually bypassing the stretch in the glute. We want to open it up, move the hips towards the knee side, while the upper body actually moves towards the center of the leg. So you want to put the focus, the hips to the right, body to the center, and then pulsing down forward towards the toes while you keep the hips pushed back behind you. This back leg you want to open up straight. It'll try to drop in. Just keep it open by flexing this back glute and then flex back up. As you move back up, you're pushing this knee down into the bench. So you're keeping it there, then you press the knee down into the bench, which pulls your body back up. This is activating that right glute for me, while this left one does a little bit of passive work. But I'm just moving down, feeling the stretch, and then going through. Holding this position is also a stretch, and you can work on sinking the hips down deeper, deeper, deeper. And then you just move this bench flat, and it gets even more difficult and more stretch. The other one that is really good for a stretch and activation is the standing piriformis. This is a little bit short for me, but it's a good way to show you. Is on a flat table, you can put a blanket or anything like that. And you're just opening up the hips this way and pushing this hip down. You're pushing the knee in. You can see the resemblance between this movement and that movement there. And you're just pushing in. You can even start to do little calf raises, but what I'm doing while I'm doing that is pushing this knee into the pad, trying to hold myself there. Before I had the shoulder issues, I was doing this with holding on to a bar past it, or holding on to the other side of the table actually works if the table is pretty sturdy. And then you're letting the hips sink down and then flexing up through them. You get a lot of movement in the hips, more movement than the incline pigeon. But again, it's a harder position to get into. There's a lot more stretch. And for some people, it's hard to set up. So as you go through it, these are all just different options and different angles to stretch the glute. So the last of the outer work is the best, but also very difficult to start. So I'll give you variations to go through so you can start building it. It's the dragon squat, which is a movement that I'm aiming to do here soon, but there's variations, like I said, that will allow you to start opening up the glutes slowly but surely and make the hips feel a lot better without just stretching, but also getting a lot of strength into them. So you're here, this back leg wraps behind. When you're starting, I want you to have something in your hands that's stable. So even if that's a table in front of you, and then you're squatting down, bringing that knee forward, and then pushing there. A very easy variation, the knee drops to the ankle, and you're pushing in. You're trying to keep that knee over the toe. What it will try to do is open up that way, but we want to keep it pulled in over the ankle and then going forward. That's the first variation. Then you can start by actually kicking it a little bit deeper and dropping down and then kicking back up to the top. So here, the knee pushes forward, you go down, and then you push back up. As you can see, that's about where I am. Typically, I'll have handles just slightly to help me go through it. And it is a little bit difficult because my body's not torquing as well as it should because this whole area is tight. The last is actually doing a dragon squat, which I can demonstrate with assistance. So we're here, the leg is wrapping under and behind, and then it pulls through to the ground, and then it comes back up. So to show you from this angle, I want to eventually get to where I'm not leaning super far over that way, but I actually can get this hip to sink right in and then pull back up to the top. So there is natural movement to the side to counterbalance the body weight, but the more the glutes can open up through that motion, and then I sink through, the better the motion will get. And this leads perfectly into the groin or the inside of the hips. That will be our last section. So the reason I say this leads so perfectly into it is the dragon squat also works the groin quite a bit, which is why it's such a good hip exercise. But you can work the groin aspect of it by getting into this position and then lifting up the groin. So similar to the hip flexor lifts, but as you rotate in, I'm squeezing this leg in and this leg under to flex the groin together. And I feel it actually on both sides as I'm doing this. If you're able to rotate down this way and then flex again, that even gets more of the groin. These are different variations, and eventually holding this position can be very good, and then getting even more range, even better as you go through. The groin is typically very tight for males, especially, and opening that up will prevent a lot of back issues in the future. So the next one is the butterfly pulses. The groin functions with straight leg, but it also functions with bent knees. So while you're here, normally I'd use heavier weight, but it's not good for me to carry currently. And I'm sitting here, opening up the knees to the bottom and then flexing back up, getting pulses as I go through, feeling in the groin. What I like to do is flex the glutes at the bottom, pulling the knees down, and then flex the groin at the top to bring it up. So you're flexing the antagonist and the agonist of the exercise. Extremely good movement for opening up groins and also testing the strength of the groin with a bent knee. The third exercise is the Copenhagen. For the Copenhagens, I've often found that if people have weak knees, they'll feel it in their knee when they're doing the movement with their foot on the bench or on a pad. So what you can do to prevent that and start getting the groin to work is get your knee all the way towards the pad and then hold the position here with the knee down, going from there. This pad is a little bit low for me. A bench would probably be a little bit better just because of the length of my arms, but it still gets the job done. I can still feel the groin getting that contraction. And then as I move my hips up and down, that's when I start getting the movement into it, which will be better for the longevity of it. But you might need to just start with the pulses or the holds in that position, getting the groin nice and strong. For stretching the groin in long range position can be a little bit difficult. I'm going to give you 2 movements here. So we're going to go over the 4, but be nice and quick. So we're here. This one is a little bit funky to do in a gym, but it's extremely beneficial. So you're going to go spread eagle practically on a wall and just open up the groin and feel the glutes contract to pull the feet down. You can put kettlebells on the feet. I found it a little bit dangerous to do that. So I just like to have gravity do it. Again, so you can be on your phone, and this feels like a great stretch. You'll feel a lot better when you get done with it. The more challenging version of that is the standing pancake. So right here, not too challenging. I'm gonna go down and then come back up. But as your feet get farther apart, you can feel quite a bit of stretch in the hips as you hinge all the way down, almost getting my head there. When I work this quite a bit, I can get my head there, but it takes a lot of stretching. See if open up just a little bit more, the bottom, and back up to the top. So the standing pancake gets stretch, but also strength as you go through it. And that concludes all of the hip movements. Of course, there's a lot more that we can pick from. There's different variations, but those are the main 16/17 exercises that I found to be really beneficial for the hips and longevity of the entire body as a whole. If you want to see more videos like this, or you really liked it, because I would hope that you did, then like, subscribe, and I'll plan to see you in the next video.